The Baltimore Ravens and Green Bay Packers face off in a crucial Week 17 matchup with a lot on the line for both sides.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
You are Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers. Welcome into the show. I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. He is Brandon Sneide, the host of the Locked On Packers Squad Show, and we are here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, and now the #1 sports podcast network. Appreciate everybody tuning in, making Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers a part of your day. And of course, thank you to all the everydayers, the first-time listeners, if you're somewhere in the middle. Thank you as well. 5 days a week of Ravens content on Locked On Ravens, 5 days a week of Packers content on Locked On Packers. We have a jam-packed episode today as we're going to dive into the Ravens and Packers Week 17 matchup with the biggest stories, the key matchups, as well as keys to victory for both sides. I want to tell everyone that today's Crossover Thursday of Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers is presented by Prize Picks. Now the Prize Picks app today, and use code Locked On NFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Brandon, happy holidays and Merry Christmas as we are doing this Crossover Thursday on Christmas Day. And hopefully both these teams want some presents under their tree instead of some coal in their stocking, as both of them need big wins to keep for the Ravens, their playoff hopes alive, as they are going to get eliminated with a loss here. And for the Packers, I know they are battling it out in that NFC. Brandon, for you, I'm curious as always, usually it's the away team that starts, since the Ravens are the away team. I want to ask you this question. I'll give my 2 cents on it and then throw it to you.
Sure.
With the way that these two teams are positioned right now, coming off of really brutal losses, both of them, I think the motivation factor is going to be really high, because to me, that's one of the biggest storylines for Baltimore right now, is they had an abysmal loss to the Patriots in Week 16. They were setting up for a really exciting finish in the postseason, and then they have it right in front of them, and all of a sudden it just collapses right in front of their eyes. And we kind of saw something similar happen with the Packers, where it's felt like, all right, hey, this is all right, look at this. And then all of a sudden it's okay, now the Bears are winning the game. It's overtime, game over. The motivation to me is going to be really big for both these teams, because I think personally the Ravens play pretty well with their backs against the wall. Both these teams dealing with some injuries as well. I mean, how much of this to you is just going to be like pure anger on both these sides of like, we're pissed off, you're pissed off, we're just going to hit each other hard and make this a physical game?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, Kevin, right? Is what team responds better to the adversity, right? Matt LaFleur for the Packers side has kind of been preaching it. And the Packers, unfortunately, have battled it all season long, right? I mean, they just have no team at this point, Kevin, this, is healthy. But when you lose your best offensive weapon outside of Jordan Love, you lose Tucker Kraft to an ACL tear, you lose arguably the best defensive player in football. I know Myles Garrett is likely going to break the record, but Micah Parsons is pretty good. You lose him to an ACL tear. Your best running back, Josh Jacobs, is banged up. Your all-pro right tackle, Zach Tom, is banged up. So it's like, which team, the storyline is which team, responds to the adversity. Both really bad losses. I said this on the squad show. I have no issue with saying it here with you. It's the worst Packers regular season loss I've ever been a part of, Kevin. Like, you're up 16-6 with 5 minutes left in the ball game. Essentially, all you got to do is fall on the onside kick. Romeo Doubs does not. The Bears have life again. And that loss was so trickling for the Green Bay Packers, right? You go into Chicago, you lose Jordan Love. I didn't even mention the injuries with Jordan Love. He left that game in the second quarter with a concussion. And it was a roller coaster game. So you're like, oh, Jordan Love's gone. It's probably Chicago's probably going to take it. That didn't happen. Like, Malik Willis came in and was awesome the whole entire game. The Packers should have won that game. They would have been in the driver's seat for the NFC North. They would have owned the tiebreaker over the Bears. All they would have to do is win, a game probably at, one of the 2 last games of their season. The Bears have a tough end of their season with the Niners and the Lions. So now it's like, okay, well, the Steelers, pretty much control their destiny as far as the AFC North, and the Ravens need a lot of help. The Packers control their destiny as far as getting into the postseason. But I don't think that's enough for this Packers team. Like, they want more. It's going to be interesting to see which team responds to that adversity. Both teams losing, as you mentioned, really crucial games on their schedule.
Yeah, you mentioned the quarterback situation. And of course, Brandon, the NFL the reason they flexed this game was so they could get the Tyler Huntley versus Malik Willis matchup.
You
in
know
week
it, baby.
17. I mean, that's what they were hoping for. But no, I mean, jokes aside, Lamar Jackson leaves the Ravens game against the Patriots in week 16, right before the half with a back injury. He was not able to return. John Harbaugh essentially diagnosed it as a significant contusion. And Lamar, that's something that even with everything he could to try to return, wasn't able to. And obviously Jordan Love with his concussion. A lot of eyes on both those guys as the practice week continues on here. But both those quarterbacks put their respective teams in position. I think a little differently. I mean, Tyler Huntley came in, was asked to essentially be a game manager, which he did really well. Malik Willis came in there and just balled for Green Bay. So these are two very capable quarterbacks that a lot of people like. I think Tyler Huntley could go into Lambeau if the cards are right and beat Green Bay. I think Malik Willis could beat Baltimore if the cards are right for him. But I think the biggest storyline for the Ravens side of things is, hey, Lamar Jackson's already missed a month with a hamstring injury. He's been banged up all year with different variations of leg injuries, knee injuries, foot injuries, ankle injuries. Obviously now this back is a new thing. A lot of that has to do with the offensive line. He's just been hit a ton this year, and it's limited his ability as a runner this year, which has been really tough for Baltimore. And so Tyler Huntley's a downgrade from Lamar Jackson. Like, I'm not saying Tyler Huntley can go in there and do what Lamar can, because Lamar Jackson is one of one. But we saw Tyler Huntley in a do or die spot for Baltimore weeks ago against a team the Packers fans are very familiar with in the Chicago Bears, save the Ravens. Tyler Huntley beat the Bears by himself in that game.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I think that there's a possibility that he could do it again. Both these teams are banged up in different ways, but obviously, if Lamar Jackson doesn't play for Baltimore, there's a huge storyline.
Yeah, and I think too, like they're humans, right? Like, they're football players, they're gladiators, they're going in there, they're banged up, they're bruised. They're also humans, Kevin. And I think if you're if you were to ask any one of those Packers defensive players, would you rather face Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley? They're going to all say Tyler Huntley. And I think automatically, and I don't want to speak for them, but I'm just assuming that there's a drop off a little bit of the excitement of that edge, right? Like, you're going up against an MVP and Lamar Jackson, and then he's ruled out. Okay, it's Tyler Huntley. It's like when the Packers lost Micah Parsons, like, were the Bears expecting, player, X, Y, or Z to step up in the way that they did against Caleb Williams and the Bears. I mean, the Packers defense had those Bears, caged up for most of that game, really up until the last 5 minutes of the ball game. So if Lamar is ruled out and if it is Tyler Huntley, I think for the Packers defense, like, you got to maintain that edge. You got to maintain the aggressiveness that you had against Caleb Williams, the aggressiveness you had against Bo Nix a week before the Bears game, and not have that drop off of, okay, their best players out, so now I can kind of take a little bit of a break. I can take a little bit of an ease this week, and we don't have to really prepare super hard for Lamar Jackson and the Ravens. And that's important, right? That's the biggest storyline, I think, coming out of Green Bay. Kevin, I kind of hit on it earlier, is how do you respond after that loss? Like, how do you wash that bad taste out of your mouth if you're the Green Bay Packers? I think it is worth noting, this is the youngest team in the NFL. They were up by 2 scores with minutes left in a ball game that they maybe should not have been winning, but were winning, and then looked like they were going to win. Like, how do they respond from that, being the youngest team in the NFL? And oh, by the way, how do you respond with that? With your backup quarterback, not taking anything away from Malik Willis, but you don't have Jordan Love possibly not leading you going forward into this game. And if he even does, like, how much of Jordan Love are you getting with that concussion? That was a really vicious hit that he took from Austin Booker in the second quarter of that Chicago Bear game. So I think it is going to be something to obviously keep an eye on how this team responds. Like, you're the youngest team in the NFL. There's not a whole lot of veterans, Kevin, on this Green Bay Packers team that have been there, done that, right? Like, Jordan Love is the leader of this team, and he's in his 3rd year starting. Like, he hasn't been through those moments, these moments of these losses. I think that's obviously the biggest storyline, is which quarterback you're going to get for both one of these teams, right? How does the defense prepare for 2 different quarterbacks? How does the offense prepare? What does the game plan look like for 2 different quarterbacks? I don't know as much about Huntley and Lamar Jackson. I know Lamar Jackson's very special. 2 different offenses, Kevin, I can tell you, with Jordan Love and Malik Willis. So that's going to be the struggle, the tug of war that Matt LaFleur, offensive coordinator Adam Stenovich, offensive line coach Luke Buckus, that's what they're going to have to be dealing with going into this week, and vice versa for Jeff Hafley and the Packers defense, and how they prepare for whichever quarterback suits up for the Baltimore Ravens.
And there are plenty of matchups to look at in this one, far beyond the quarterback position. I think there are a lot of really intriguing ones for both Baltimore and Green Bay. So coming up, we will dive into some of those. All that and more coming up on this crossover Thursday of Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers. First, this show is presented and brought to you by Prize Picks. And when you look at Prize Picks, I mean, look, the holiday season, it's one of the best times for sports. You got bowl games, big basketball matchups, playoff pushes. It's all happening at once. While we're all making choices every day, one of the most fun places to make the right call is Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the easiest way to get in on daily fantasy. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, lock in your lineup, and you're in the game. It's simple, fast, and available in 45 states, including California, Texas, Florida, and Georgia. Prize Picks is adding an extra layer of excitement to the holiday sports schedule. Creating a lineup takes less than a minute, and the app makes the whole process smooth and intuitive. You can choose from a huge range of unique stats, fantasy score, field goals attempted, free throws made, turnovers, whatever fits your strategy. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Back here on this crossover Thursday, Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers. I'm the host of Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher. He is the host of the Locked On Packers Squad Show, Brandon Sneide, and we're here diving into everything relating to this Week 17 Ravens and Packers matchup at Lambeau. Brandon, let's dive into some of these matchups. I'm really excited for this game. I know that there's a lot of question marks about the quarterback. I know both these fan bases are reeling from the losses they took in Week 16, but both teams not eliminated. Packers, they're looking to pick up a big win for their playoff destiny. The Ravens, they're looking to pick up a win to just keep their season alive. But I look at these matchups, I'm really interested because I'm big on conversion rates. And the Ravens have been one of the worst red zone offenses in the NFL this season. They actually improved last week. They went from 31 to 30th in the NFL in red zone offense, which, are getting round of applause.
Hey, you're making ground.
Making moves, and not to mention they actually fell from 30th to 31st the previous week. But hey, you know what? We're not counting that. The Ravens have converted in the red zone through 16 weeks. It's been an abysmal 45.3% of those conversions. It's been bad. Now, Green Bay is 25th in red zone defense, giving up 61.9% of those opportunities. So something has to give here. I said it last week with New England, who was the worst red zone defense in the NFL. Something has to give. It's either going to be the Ravens' poor red zone offense or the Packers' poor red zone defense. And I say this about a lot of matchups, but I do think it holds true in this one as well. Field goals are not going to cut it in this game. You cannot get down to the 10-yard line. You have first and goal from the 5 maybe, or you get to maybe the 2-yard line, and you can't punch the ball, and you got to kick a chip shot 20, 30-yard field goal. I don't think that's going to work against either of these teams. Now, depending on who plays quarterback for both, maybe you can get away with it a little more. But I think that matchup is going to be crucial in this game, especially for momentum's sake. And from the Ravens side of things, Brandon, the Ravens are a very momentum-based team. They take it with them and they run with it, or they give it up and everything falls apart. And I think the way you can build momentum is just continuously scoring touchdowns, starting fast, and making sure that you don't give the defense an opportunity to recover and just punish them for all the mistakes that they're making.
I find it interesting that is something you're keeping your eye on, because the Packers, Kevin, prior to the game against the Bears, were the best red zone offense in the NFL. Their last 2 weeks between Chicago and you got to go back to Denver, they are 1 for 9 in the red zone for the Packers offense. Josh Jacobs had a fumble on the 2-yard line against the Bears. I don't want to go back to the Bear game, but Josh Jacobs scores that touchdown in the red zone for the Green Bay Packers on the 2-yard line on first and goal. Kevin, that's probably the game. Like, looking back at it, that's probably all they would need. So it's been an issue for the Packers offense as well, as putting those points on the board when they're in the red zone. So it's interesting that the Ravens are struggling, because as of late, as are the Green Bay Packers. So this very well could be decided within the red zone. The one specific thing I really want to keep an eye on, and I don't think this is necessarily going to surprise you, Kevin. I don't think it's going to surprise the everydayers, the people that are paying attention to the Green Bay Packers. That's Derrick Henry for the Baltimore Ravens. And I think that if there's one area, the Packers' run defense is pretty good. They're 10th overall in yards allowed on the ground. In between the tackles is where the Packers defense has some issues with stopping the run. And I think you and I would agree that's probably the strength of Derrick Henry, who's got over 1,200 yards. He's got 12 touchdowns again, averaging 5 yards per carry. How he runs, or the lack thereof, I think is going to be the difference in this ball game. And I know we'll talk about our keys to the game later, but I think for this Packers front seven versus Derrick Henry is the one matchup I really want to keep an eye on. You look at the Packers linebacking core, Quay Walker, first-round draft pick, Edgerrin Cooper, second-round draft pick. Those guys arguably have been the best duo in the middle of the defense throughout the entire NFL. Sideline to sideline, Kevin, they're the best in the biz. Like, the speed on that defense is insane. It's a strength for the Packers. They've kept Jahmyr Gibbs in lock. They kept the Bears rushing attack, which is the best in the NFL, twice in a span of 3 weeks. They've kept them kept them low as yards for the entire game. But I think the biggest thing for me is I want to watch how this Packers front seven, without Devontae Wyatt, their other first-round draft pick up at the front of the interior of the defensive line, how they're able to control Derrick Henry. Because I really don't think it matters if it's Lamar Jackson or if it's Tyler Huntley. If you allow Derrick Henry to average 5 yards per carry and they're able to consistently be ahead of the sticks, number one, you're winning likely the time of possession, which is keeping the strength of this Packers team, which is their offense, off the field, right? You're keeping potentially Jordan Love, and I'll even put Malik Willis in that same category because he marched them up and down the field against the Chicago Bears. They just couldn't convert, as I mentioned, in the red zone. So the one thing I'm really keeping an eye on is Derrick Henry. I think he's the key piece for Baltimore. Obviously, having Lamar Jackson, he's one of one. He's a super talent. He's an MVP of the National Football League. There's not many players that are as electric as Lamar Jackson with the football in his hands. But I think the biggest thing, I think I would be on Mount Obvious if I said, contain Lamar Jackson. I think we all know that needs to happen. Yeah. But the thing is, if you allow Derrick Henry to settle into this game, and then you allow, the threat of Tyler Huntley getting loose a little bit, maybe it's Lamar Jackson, you're able, you lose contain of Mark Andrews, you lose the contain of Zay Flowers, like they're able to open up a different side of their playbook. I think you have to be able to keep that run offense of the Ravens in check. And the run offense, I know it's not a great year for the Ravens, but they can still run the ball. I think that's a real threat against this Packers defense.
I have good news for you, Brandon, and for Packers fans. The Ravens apparently don't like putting Derrick Henry on the field in big situations, so they might help you out a little bit if he's having a great game. I mean, if Lamar wasn't injured, that would have 1,000% been the biggest storyline in Baltimore, where at the end of that Patriots game, I mean, essentially what you said, where Derrick Henry ran all over that Patriots defense and averaged 7.1 yards per carry on 18 carries, had 2 total touchdowns in the game. And in the biggest moments of the contest, when you were trying to keep your lead, and then once that lead was blown, come back in the game, on the last 2 possessions, Derrick Henry gets 0 snaps. And I thought the offensive line, which has been a huge issue for Baltimore all season, they didn't do enough in the offseason to adjust their guard positions, and the guards have been terrible with Daniel Falele and Andrew Voorhees. Ronnie Stanley's had up and down moments. Roger Rosengarten regressed for a good portion of the year. He's been better recently, but still his rookie year was a lot more consistent. It all starts up front for offense and defense, honestly. But, it doesn't matter who you have in that backfield. If it's Derrick Henry, it doesn't matter who you have at quarterback, if it's Lamar Jackson or whoever it may be. You have a guy or two in the defensive backfield or the offensive backfield every second and a half. You're not doing anything. I don't care who you are. And I thought that the offensive line for Baltimore played their best collective game of the season last week against the Patriots, but they just don't go to that well. And this is not the first or the second or the third time that this has happened in the John Harbaugh era. So, Harbaugh's on the hot seat right now. It's a whole different conversation. But to your point, it's decisions like that that have got them there when there's such an obvious script in front of you. Something you laid out perfectly. Like, that's exactly what the Ravens should do, is you try to open up their offense with the run game.
I'm not a genius, Kevin, but I would just give it to him. Like, I wouldn't want to tackle him at the end of December at Lambeau Field. Like, I wouldn't want to get in front of him if I'm a defender.
Just that fourth quarter, you've already tried to tackle him for 45 minutes. Like, I'm not trying to step in front of Derrick Henry on those plays. It's like, It's right in front of you and it hasn't worked. So, at least for John Harbaugh, it hasn't worked and it hasn't really gotten through to him. So I would expect a heavy dosage of Derrick Henry in this game, if not for anything more than a Derrick Henry, please save my job game from John Harbaugh, because the Ravens was the playoffs. You got to have that conversation about Harbaugh. But I am also curious on the other side of things with Green Bay's rushing offense, because, Josh Jacobs, I have long been a fan of Josh Jacobs, even back in his Raiders days, and someone that I do have a lot of dynasty fantasy football stock in. I'll just put that out there right now. Who was great. He was great for me all year, but he's been banged up a little bit. And Emmanuel Wilson has come in and I think ran the ball pretty well. I think he's been a nice find for Green Bay, and he's really taken on a really nice role for them. Baltimore's run defense has found themselves over the last couple of weeks, and their defense is so night and day better than what it was in the early part of the season. They were second to last, bottom 5 in almost every major statistical defensive category over the first 7 weeks of the season. And they've come back with a vengeance, particularly on that run defense where you have guys like Travis Jones on the edge, guys like Mike Green and Draymond Jones as well. Tavius Robinson is back, who's a very good run defender. But I'm curious because with Green Bay's rushing offense, their yards per carry numbers haven't been great this season in terms of that. They're averaging just 4.2 on the ground, which isn't terrible, but it's good for 24th in the NFL. I think they've run the ball better than those numbers suggest. I think the offense on the ground has been better than that. And I'm not just a pure stats guy. I like to watch the games and see what's happening on the football field. And Josh Jacobs has run the ball well. Emmanuel Wilson has run the ball well. But to me, if you can stop that and make that a non-factor, put the Packers in second and long, make sure they don't have that option available to them. And that helps if you're up in this game. You know, if you're up 17-3 or 14-10 or whatever it may be. I think for Baltimore, stopping that Green Bay rushing attack, making the Packers offense one-dimensional is a very big key for them. But I am curious because, you know, you mentioned Zach Tom. That's a big piece of their offensive line.
Huge.
Obviously, they've dealt with other injuries there as well. Baltimore's D-line has sometimes struggled to generate pressure on the quarterback. So in the passing game, that's something where we saw it on Sunday night. Drake May was just patting the ball. Who's open? Where am I going? Where am I? And guys just can't cover for that long. So I think you have to be able to win somewhere. And to me, if I'm Baltimore, I'm identifying that run game, but I'm curious about that tandem of Josh Jacobs and Emmanuel Wilson because they're a really good duo.
Yeah, and if you add to the rushing attack, like let's say it's Malik Willis, Kevin, like that's a whole different area of trying to stop the run, right? And the Bears,
absolutely,
they struggled with it in Week 16, man. They really struggled with containing Malik Willis on the outside. The zone read was really good for the Green Bay Packers. Quite frankly, I think you talked about John Harbaugh. I think Matt LaFleur should have went to it a lot more than he did and called Malik's number, or maybe that's Malik calling his own number more times than he did. But the big thing for the Packers is, and it's really been a strength for many, many years, Kevin, it's the offensive line. Like it's been so inconsistent, even when guys have been healthy, right? Zach Tom's really never been healthy. Like week 3, I think it was, he tore his oblique, like, and it just kind of has never been fully healthy. Then he has a knee injury against the Broncos, and it just like Aaron Banks was the free agent acquisition of the summer or of the spring for the Green Bay Packers. He hasn't lived up to that contract. Elton Jenkins, who moved from left guard to center, he's out for this season after breaking a leg. Then you take Sean Ryan, their right guard, slide him over to center. You insert a rookie second rounder, Anthony Bell, moving musical chairs, Kevin, for the offensive line for the Green Bay Packers. That's been the biggest thing. There has not been continuity up front for this team. It feels like there's a different starting 5 almost every single week. And when you have that inconsistency, not breaking any news, but you're just not going to be as effective, certainly against teams that like to, pound, get after the quarterback. And I know Baltimore's not, one of the strengths of their defense, but the other teams throughout the Packers schedule have been. And that's where you're seeing the running game kind of take its toll, is the offensive line for the Green Bay Packers. And a big reason why Jordan Love has a concussion is the lack thereof of the offensive line blocking up front.
Yeah, and we sprinkle it in a lot when it comes to potential keys to victory for both the Ravens and the Packers in this game with our big stories and matchups. But in the final part of the show, we'll officially lay them out, how Green Bay can win this game and how Baltimore can win this game. So stay tuned. Plenty coming up on this crossover Thursday at Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers. Moving along and rounding out our crossover Thursday at Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers. Kevin Oestreicher, Brandon Sneide still here with you, talking Ravens and Packers football. Brandon, I'll start with you on this one. Let me get your 3 keys to victory for this Green Bay Packers team when it comes to how they can defend their home turf, beat the Ravens, and make sure they pick up a pivotal Week 17 win.
Yeah, and it's 2 of the 3, Kevin. We kind of already hit on it, but the first one for me, it's a reason that they probably have 2 almost 3 losses on their schedule. I guess it's a tie technically with the Dallas Cowboys. Special teams, Kevin. It's literally has costed them. They would have probably already have clinched the NFC North, Kevin. I'm being quite honest with you. They probably would have beat Dallas had they not blocked the extra point. They probably would have beaten, well, I know they would have beaten Cleveland on a walk-off field goal, but that was blocked. Then you look at the Chicago Bears in week 16, where you can't recover the onside kick. The Packers have 5 losses. That's 3 off the top of my head, Kevin, due to special teams. Like, it's literally been an issue with the Green Bay Packers, I think, since I've been alive, Kevin, but it has gotten worse and worse because Rich Bisaccia is the highest paid coordinator, or one of, in the entire NFL. And it's been a unit that continues to struggle. And guess what? There's not a better coach for in that unit than John Harbaugh in the NFL. They're going to come in and they always play sound special teams. So that's going to be my first key. The Packers have to play clean special teams. Number 2, kind of already touched on a little bit. You have to contain Derrick Henry. You have to contain if he plays Lamar Jackson. And I, quite frankly, that continues on even if it's Tyler Huntley. I mean, Derrick Henry, we've rattled off his numbers, over 1,200 yards, 12 touchdowns, 5 yards per carry. The Ravens, 3rd in the NFL in total rush yards, 3rd in rush yards per game at almost 150. The Packers have got to contain the run game. You want to put these guys, whether it's Lamar Jackson or Tyler Huntley, in 2nd and long, in 3rd and long. You know, get Rashawn Gary, Brenton Cox, who the Packers just got off of the injured list. Get those guys, pin their ears back, get pressure on the quarterback. It's not been a great secondary for the Green Bay Packers. Xavier McKinney has been underwhelming this year. He's had a lot of dropped interceptions, but it's a secondary for the Green Bay Packers that when they know they're in obvious passing downs, they can come out and they can make the big play. So you've got to contain the Ravens running game. That's key number 2. Key number 3, kind of touched it on it the segment before. The offensive line for the Green Bay Packers, whether it's Jordan Love, Kevin, or it's Malik Willis, you got to keep those 2 upright. Though they cannot take a hit in this game like they took a hit against the Chicago Bears, because if one of them suits up and one of them doesn't, and one of them gets hurt, Malik Willis has injured his throwing shoulder against the Chicago Bears. Jordan Love, we know, has the concussion. They don't have another quarterback, Kevin. Josh Jacobs, according to Matt LaFleur, now they'll probably suit up 3, but Josh Jacobs, according to Matt LaFleur, was their emergency quarterback against the Chicago Bears. Wow. Like, that's how dangerous it was. So these guys up front for the Green Bay Packers have got to be stout in this game. We don't know the availability of Zach Tom. Obviously, he's dealing with the back injury and the knee injury. Packers, as I mentioned before, got to run the ball efficiently. You have to be able to get these quarterbacks, whether it's Willis or it's Love, you've got to get them in advantageous situations and keep them upright. It is going to be pivotal that the Packers offensive line, plays one of their, if not their best game of the season.
Yep. It all starts up front. It all starts up front. And, I'm in agreement with you on that. I think the Ravens, it kind of goes into it. So I was going to talk about winning the turnover battle for Baltimore, first of all. And part of that is, keeping Tyler Huntley or Lamar Jackson, whoever's out there, keeping them upright, not letting them take hits, not speeding up their internal clocks. And as a defense, you have to put Malik Willis and Jordan Love in those situations. Sure. So exactly what your point was, the Ravens, they really struggled to force turnovers early in the season. They have gotten better at it as the year has gone on. And again, like I said, with the Ravens being such a momentum-based team, they really take that momentum from turnovers. They had 2 really big ones against New England on Sunday night. And again, that game didn't result in a win, but you could tell it. The Patriots were driving. They were looking to take the momentum back. And then an interception by Marlon Humphrey and a strip sack fumble by Ardarius Washington right before the half really turned those tides to, I guess, at the end of the game, not let the Patriots win by more, but keep the Ravens in the game at the end. So I think winning the turnover battle is going to be huge for Baltimore. Secondly, 3rd down is going to be so huge for both these teams in this game, but the Packers offense versus the Ravens defense on 3rd down. This is the best offense in the NFL on 3rd down in Green Bay. 3rd down conversion percentage, they're converting over 50% of their opportunities on 3rd down. Baltimore, who was, again, terrible in 3rd down defense early in the season, has come all the way up to number 7 in 3rd down defense this season. So they've really reshaped their identity there. They held the Patriots to 4 of 12 on 3rd down on Sunday night. And that's a very explosive offense like we've seen over the course of the season. And, on the flip side of things, Baltimore with their 3rd down offense, they're kind of they're 16th. They're right smack dab in the middle. Green Bay is 12th, so kind of middle on middle there. But I really think that third down is going to dictate a lot in this game, because we saw Baltimore go 7 for 11 on third down against the Patriots. They kept drives alive, and that's something that, despite a tough loss, Todd Monk and their offensive coordinator really spoke up about when talking about some of that game and what went right for the team on Sunday night. And then finally, I am going to say the one that we've talked about is run Derrick Henry. Run him 30 times. The Ravens have been talking about this rotation type deal, and, we're going to rotate Keaton Mitchell. And I love Keaton Mitchell personally. I think he's an awesome player, a really good compliment to Derrick Henry. But your season's on the line. Your star players need to be the ones that you utilize. And like we talked about, the Ravens, if they can run the ball effectively early, opening up their play action game, using the tight ends effectively in that, they just need guys to step up and just play your game. Too many times the Ravens have just gone away from that ground game. And like you talked about, Brandon, I mean, this right now is the best rushing offense in the NFL in yards per attempt. But they only have the 9th most carries in the league this season, which is a far cry from what they usually do. They usually are top 2, top 5, sometimes top 1 in carries in a season. It's been a different year this year. It's been a challenging year, but this team absolutely needs to run the football against this Green Bay front. Even if it's not working, even if Green Bay stops it early, keep going back to that well, keep Green Bay on their toes. Do not give them the satisfaction of making your offense one-dimensional early in this game. That's going to be something I think Baltimore has to do really effectively. But I think this game's going to be a good one. Again, a lot on the line Saturday night. Don't go looking for that Sunday afternoon 1 p.m. game. Is not going to be there. Ravens and Packers play on Saturday night in prime time. So for Brandon, a Locked On Packers and Locked On Packers Squad show, I am Kevin of Locked On Ravens. Be sure you hit the like and subscribe button in video form and audio form for 5 days a week, plus more of Ravens and Packers content on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers, respectively. And of course, we'll be back after the game and talking about everything, and of course, rounding out the week. So be sure to stay tuned, and we'll see you right back here soon on Locked On Ravens and Locked On Packers.